Let me start by offering my greeting. Good morning to our friends in North and South America. Good afternoon to our friends in the UK and in Europe. Good early evening to our friends in the Arab states and India. Good evening to our friends in Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia. And good late evening to our friends in Australia. Nice to see you. We have some questions, JC.
Question 1, Dear Ajahn, hearing about this plane that crashed recently in India, where all but one passenger died, I felt very sad and confused. Why did it happen? How is such a thing possible? Thank you.
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, a plane took off from India heading towards London, I think, and just got past the runway and came crashing down and exploded because it had a full load of fuel, and all but one person died. So that's a quite dramatic occurrence. There are karmas that we make as individuals, and then there are also karmas that we make as a group. And the teaching on karma only really works with other aspects of skillful view, the way the Lord Buddha presented it. So belief in karma is part of right view, mundane right view. Belief in past lives and future lives is also a part of skillful right view. So karma doesn't make sense if you don't think there were lives before this one. But when you look at situations now where you have in the world now, most people find the actions of the Israeli military in Palestine worrying, disturbing. But we can see, for the purpose of making a point here, we can see that there is a group of people working together and persecuting another group of people. There may be some justification for that. Human beings are good at justifying things. They did this, so now we do that. But the point I'm making is when groups of people work together to cause injury, death, starvation, then they're making very heavy karma together. Then it becomes possible that in some future life, many, many lifetimes away possibly, that karma can ripen, that those people may have waged a war against. So this is fairly common in the human realm, that one nation, one kingdom, one religion decides to persecute another. This is kind of business as usual in samsara, unfortunately, particularly in the human realm. So it's very possible that in past lives, groups of people work together to do something unskillful. It's also just as possible that the same group of people did skillful things. But what happens in such times is the bad karma's ripening now. If you caused beings' lives to be cut short, your life will be cut short in the future. So the sad part of it is most of those people would have no recollection, understanding of what they've done in the past at all. And so with a one lifetime view, it doesn't make sense. It's not, well, the one lifetime view, it could just be bad luck. You know, there's only one life and some accidents happen and had to happen to somebody. With the multi-lifetime view, millions of lives view, we have all made harmful karma. We've all made bad karma. Actually, we all have the possibility to die in a plane crash every single time we get on the plane. So that understanding actually should make all of us quite heedful. This flight might be your last. And this is a really pertinent, poignant example that it didn't even get up into the sky, really, just got off the tarmac, they're all dead. So I actually do this as a practice because I find myself in planes with some frequency. And I do remind myself when I put on my seatbelt that I might not make it to the end of the tarmac. So it's one of the reflections that I do for myself as a personal practice, that if I do make it into the air, that I might not make it to the destination. And particularly as you're landing, because I think that's the most dangerous part of any flight is the landing part. I remind myself again, you might not make it to the terminal. So that's a general practice that I have as one of my ways I contemplate death and dying, the possibility of death and dying, so that if I were to die on a flight, that there would be part of me that wouldn't be surprised. It was like, oh, I knew this might happen. But even though all of us do unskillful things and have made bad karma, the, you know, it's a situation that deserves compassion, not harsh judgment. People, there is greed, hatred, and very importantly, there is delusion. So people act on their greed, people act on their hatred because they're deluded. So this is the thing I was saying about the things that we can do to justify actions. Because of this, I'm taking this revenge. Because I have this goal, the whole idea that the ends justifies the means. Very dangerous. And there's one saying, isn't there, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So we have to think of it moment by moment. What are we doing? Is my action, not just my intention, but is my action skillful? You know, although I might be able to justify it, does it count as a wholesome action, or is it unskillful? Is it harmful? And then we have to practice heedfulness. And as disciples of the Buddha, I mean, he's really in one of his most what's the word? I'll just say the teaching, and we can draw our own conclusions. He's a non-negotiable when it comes to the importance of practicing harmlessness. He says, if you are a true disciple of Lord Buddha, even if a person was chopping off your arms and legs, you would not give rise to a thought of anger. So the Buddha doesn't say, somebody hurt you, somebody hurt someone you know, you're perfectly justified in taking revenge. He never said that. He said, if you are a true disciple of Buddha, you will not give rise to anger and ill will. When other things he says, you know, if you are insulted, silence yourself like a broken gong. Don't retaliate. Don't insult them back just because they insulted you. In the moment, it can feel like weakness. There's a nice, strong feeling that comes from, I'm going to take my revenge. I'll show them. I can insult too. I can insult even better. Haha, watch me. But that's actually the weakness. That's the making more karma. The person who knows how to be silent when they've been insulted and if someone is criticizing you unfairly behind your back, someone else mentions that person and you don't criticize them, you stay silent, you're not adding to the karma. And that person's making bad karma. And if it's not based on truth, then that's even more bad karma. But we don't retaliate by bringing out a list of all the bad things they did and affect people's perception of them. This is cultivating noble qualities, patience, forbearance, forgiveness, sowing only positive causes that are going to result as good opportunities and high standing and good status for yourself in your future. So, yeah.
Question to the Ajahn. On right speech, the Buddha said, when not asked, one says good of others and bad of oneself. And when asked, one says little bad of others and little good of oneself. Could you elaborate, please? Especially in saying bad of oneself when not asked. Because when I do that, others think that I'm stupid. Thank you.
I'm not familiar with the exact teaching, so I don't know which verse or which sutta that came from. I think it's important to understand that Lord Buddha's teachings were usually addressed to a specific group or a specific individual. And So I don't know if this is a general teaching or a teaching to an individual. But in general, most beings, a lot of people have a tendency of praising themselves and denigrating others. So that's the tendency that we have to downplay our faults, exaggerate our goodness, magnify others' faults, and not rejoice in their goodness. That's a tendency that a lot of people have, which is not a very beautiful quality. So as a general way of training oneself to speak little of the bad qualities of others, because you're training yourself to be more humble, be less conceited, don't speak much of your positive qualities. Just yeah. But I don't know how many people Lord Buddha met who had like a self-loathing issue and issues with self-denigration, because a lot of modern people do have this tendency. So we need to understand that this is a teaching for a general teaching for people who have a habit of denigrating others and praising themselves, which might not be perfectly truthful. So balance to that habit. In general, we speak of people's good qualities, and we don't speak too much about their bad qualities, because even if it's true, when you think about it, dwell on it, make the karma of speaking about it, even if it's true, you're still making a bit of bad karma there. It's not, it darkens your own mind when you give attention to darkness. So you can observe a person's negative qualities, be mindful of them, make some notes about where you might need to set some boundaries, warn someone if they're a friend, but we don't obsess about it like the way people like to get together and gossip for long periods of time about every mistake a person made, every not nice quality they have, and people join in and bit of a character assassination. So we try not to join in that kind of activity. We focus on and sometimes a lot of people saying something negative about someone, then you might mention something good they did, but you throw something else into the situation. That well, there was that occasion where he did such and such, and he's not all bad. And there's something that we can do sometimes where actually help other people make less bad karma. So, but yeah, I don't know about speaking about your bad qualities without being asked. I'm not sure if that's a a good thing to do on a daily basis. But yes.
Question 3, dear Ajahn Achalo. Thank you for your comforting words over the years. Please give a dummy explanation of anatta, not self, how understanding this teaching can be applied in our daily life when there is so much injustice, pain, and cruelty in the world. Thank you.
Good question. And the question is, how do we understand or integrate the teaching on not self into our daily life? So Lord Buddha explains that the conditioned world has three characteristics: anicca, impermanence; dukkha, unsatisfactoriness; and anatta, not self. It's interesting that the phrase means not self. It doesn't say there is no self. So I think it's a bit tricky to try to understand it and integrate it into daily life. I think when the time when we do our contemplations of not self is on the meditation pillow, we might chant the Anatta Sutta, and we might do an actual contemplation. For example, you have your current body, and so you just incline your mind to consider the fact that it used to be an embryo, and you compare what's an embryo like compared to this situation. And then remember, okay, this body used to be 3, and just try to actually, if you can remember something when you're 3, remember yourself when you're 3 just for a moment. So what was life like? What was the experience like then? What kind of thoughts did you have? What did you think about the world? What was your life like? And then just consider again your situation now, and then consider when you were 13. Okay, what was important to you then? What was life like then? And you can see that although there's a continuum, they're completely different people. It's like you are not an embryo now. You are not a 13-year-old. And so you can see that even within one lifetime, that which we call ourselves changes so much. So it's like there's no non-changing self. There's no abiding self, but there is a habit, a conventional reality of perceiving our bodies, our feelings, our thoughts as a self. Look, one of the ways Luang Por Nun explains it is that in terms of a path of practice or an approach that we take is that before we realize not self, we actually have to become a beautiful being. So you start as a patujana, which means a worldly being, a coarse being, a being with thick delusion. And then you cultivate your thoughts, your speech, your behavior to the point of being a kalyana jana, a lovely being. And the lovely being is the foundation for becoming the Arya Jana, the noble being, the enlightened being. So most of us, what we have to work on is being a beautiful being. So that making sure our speech is skillful, trying to make sure our thoughts are skillful. If our thoughts are unskillful, not making the karma of speech with them. Cultivating mindfulness, dedicating merits, cultivating metta, making the mind bright. This is the foundation for the insight. Again, I think that the teaching that I help in terms of like integrating it into a world where there's so much injustice, I would refer again to the reflection about karma, because one of the best ways I find, because a lot of modern people, when we see injustice, it's a normal response to feel frustrated, angry, and then to have self-righteousness. I mean, when you have self-righteous indignation, you can get very upset. They shouldn't do this, they shouldn't do that. Blah, blah, blah. When we're doing that, we're forgetting something. We're forgetting the law of karma, how powerful it is. It doesn't actually have anything to do with your thoughts or your opinions about how things should be, how things shouldn't be. That doesn't have anything to do with the experience of other beings. We think it should because we have a big sense of self with a lot of opinions. And we think that the politicians should listen to my opinions, the generals should listen to my opinions, the soldiers should listen to my opinions, the NGOs should listen to my, everyone should shut up and listen to my opinion. The world would be much better. But everyone in the world is not going to shut up and listen to your opinion. Sorry to tell you, you might have noticed. Some people will listen to your opinion sometimes. A lot of people won't. A lot of people won't like your opinion. A lot of people argue with your opinion. That's the reality of the human birth. So we have to, what is really occurring is the karma of individuals and the karma of groups is playing itself out. That's what's happening. And so what I find helpful as someone who's, when we're cultivating being the lovely being, something that humbles self-righteous anger is the reflection of karma. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't care. Compassion is wholesome. We still have our metta, we still wish well, we still have our compassion. If you are in a situation where you can do something to make the situation better, you should. That's your opportunity to make barami, to build virtue, to make good karma. But we have to be humbled by the power of karma. The law of karma is extremely powerful. And I remind people with some frequency that we got born into what is considered to be the degenerating age. That's where we got born. It's not a time where everything's going to get better and better. It's not a time where you can plan your utopia and expect it to manifest. No. It's a time where less and less beings being born as humans are coming from the human world. A lot of people being born now are coming from animal realms, ghost realms, difficult situations. So those beings are bringing their heavy karma and their darkness into the human world with them. So that's where we're at, samsarically speaking. If you imagine it as being like waves, as big waves in terms of human population, where the whole population might be closer to heaven in their shared karma. And then there's the downside when the whole population is closer to the ghost realms and the animals. That's where we're at. So we have to check our idealism. Idealism is fine, but you need to apply it to your speech, your actions, your thoughts, your life. In terms of getting on a soapbox and saying how the world should be, well, good luck, because it's not going to be that way. And so, there might be a point when you can be born as a human being. Once it goes down to the really low area and maybe in 100 million years, when things are starting to brighten up again. That might be the time to get on the soapbox and say, hey, we can do better, because there's going to be a whole bunch of people around at that time that say, you are right, we can do better, let's do better. That's when things are brightening up. But that's not now, you might have noticed. So we have to be mindful of where we are, samsarically speaking, in the cycle of samsara, and we are living in a degenerating period of time. So we try to take care of our own speech, our own actions, our own thoughts, our own family, our own friends, our own behavior in businesses. We try to have ethical jobs. We try not to contribute to any of the unskillfulness we see around us. But you can't expect there not to be wars. You can't expect there not to be famines. You can't expect there to be equitable sharing of wealth. It's a period where the rich are getting richer, the middle class are getting poorer. That's the way it is. Now, if you are in a situation where you can do something about it, great, please do. But if you're not, you have to think in terms of, how can I be peaceful? How can I sow the causes to be born in a brighter age with better quality of people? You have to take responsibility for taking care of your actions. Now, of course, we do recommend contemplating not self. This very important aspect of the Buddhist training, but that's the kind of thing you can do on your meditation pillow after you chant your praises to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then you chant the Anatta Sutta, and then you can read the translation of it. Can you control your body? Can you control your feelings? Are you perfectly in control of your thoughts? Is it appropriate? Is it suitable to consider this as I, as me, as a self? No, Lord. You go through it, you contemplate it, and then there's all sorts of things you can do. You can consider your teeth and then just ask yourself, is this me? Consider your bones. Ask yourself, is this me? Where is this me that causes me so much suffering? Where are you? Is it in the colon? Is it in your spine? Is it in the excrement? I hope not. Where is this self? And what happens oftentimes is when you really go through the body and look at it as parts and then just ask yourself, where is it? Where is it? Even if you go straight to the heart, where that strong feeling of self can really arise with some power, have a really direct look at it, see the kind of the heat and the spinning and the contraction. Is there a self there? And you can get these quite expansive mind states where there's a kind of a recognition for a few moments. Hey, there's no self there. It's not there. And then, of course, you get up from your meditation and the sense of self comes back again. So that's the situation we're in, because we've made a lot of karma with it. We're very attached to it. So I have that experience quite often. I'll do my meditation after arms round, and if it was peaceful, coming out of the kuti, just kind of noticing sky, flowers, not much of a feeling of being a self, right? Well, I walk down to the central area of the monastery and I see the lay guests have come, and then I kind of like remember, oh, I'm the abbot. Oh, guests have come. Oh, there's this building project. And it's like you start picking it up again. Okay, yeah, conventional reality. Have to be the abbot. Remember to smile. Don't scold people too much. You know, all these things you have to remind yourself. And so, yeah, when we meditate, if we meditate a lot, you'll probably notice that sense of self gets much less. And when the sense of self gets much less, the mind is brighter, lighter, happier. And then you have to go back to work or deal with your family. A sense of self comes back. Then we have our commitment to our precepts and our practice of metta, which helps us navigate it more skillfully. It's during periods of retreat that, in general, people have a chance to have an actual insight into not self. And that's why it's important to do intensive retreats if you're able to. You may have the experience where the feeling of self just completely disappears for a period of time. There may be awareness of a body, there may be feelings, but no grasping at it as being I or mine for a period of time. And then you understand it on a deeper level. Oh, wow, it really is true. Perceiving things as a self is a habitual assumption. It's a deep habit, but it's not reality. And when you have that insight, when you have that experience, experiencing the body, aware of sounds, aware of feelings, not perceiving it as a self, the sense of self comes back. But you know now, oh, there is a deeper reality where this is not the center of everything. It's not the way we interpret things. You see a form as a form, thoughts as thoughts, feelings as feelings, not I, not mine. So yes, in daily life, we intend to be kind, patient, forgiving people. And on the meditation cushion, we try not to be anybody.
Question for dear Ajahn. Can good monks and nuns still fall in love? Would monks tend to see falling in love as a kind of temporary insanity? Thank you.
Nice, juicy question. Can good monks and nuns still fall in love? Would they see falling in love as a form of temporary insanity? Good question. I think it's a good question. So what kind of good monk? If you're a good monk like Lumpur Biak and Lumpur Anan and Lumpur Cha, you're not going to fall in love because there's no grasping at the body or feelings or thoughts as being a self at all anymore, no attachment to it. So those good monks cannot fall in love. Those good monks feel impartial loving kindness towards all beings. But with regards to other good monks, good monks and nuns who are not yet finished, so sexual craving or any kind of craving only goes away completely at the third level of enlightenment. So, we have stream entry, once returners, non-returners, arahants. So even a stream enterer, someone who's had experience of nibbana, has no doubt in the Buddha, has seen through self, they cannot have more than a seventh life, but they may still have a few more lives. And such a person still experiences affection. And, in love is a very interesting phenomenon. Probably in terms of, is it mental illness? I don't want to say it is, but if you look what people do when the kind of things people do when they're in love, I actually did a bit of research on this, and I'm going to read it. Because I get to have a look at the questions before I answer them, so I can put a little bit of thought into it. And so I asked the question in my Google search: what is it that makes you feel weak at the knees and lightheaded, euphoric when falling in love? So this is and this also suggests not self. So listen up. When feeling love, particularly in the initial stages, the body can experience sensations like weak knees and lightheadedness due to a surge of hormones and neurotransmitters like dopamine, norepinephrine, and phenylethylamine. These chemicals trigger a fight or flight response in the body, leading to increased heart rate, rapid breathing, a rush of energy, which can sometimes manifest as physical sensations like shaky knees or dizziness. So fight or flight is that, suppose you see something genuinely dangerous, a tiger, a vampire, or whatever, something scary, a mugger. Your body releases all of these things so that you have more energy to either try to fight it off or run away. But when you fall in love, your body produces the same things, and you don't want to run away. So what happens? Shaky knees, lightheaded. Dopamine and norepinephrine, these neurotransmitters are released during the early stages of attraction, creating feelings of euphoria and excitement. Norepinephrine in particular is associated with heightened focus and attention, which can make you feel energized and perhaps a bit shaky. So I'm going to ask, give me a show on the screen, how many people have fallen in love before? Please raise your hand. Yeah. So it's interesting how it says in the initial stages. the initial stages, you feel euphoric. What about phenylethylamine? This hormone substance is also released during the initial stages of attraction. It can cause dizzy sensation, similar to what some people feel when falling in love. The body's reaction to these hormones can also cause other physical sensations such as flushed cheeks, sweaty palms, and a racing heart. This is very important now, what these hormones do, what these neurotransmitters do. Listen to this part. Reduced activity in the frontal cortex. During the early stages of love, activity in the frontal cortex, which is responsible for rational thought and judgment, is reduced. This can contribute to the feeling of being overwhelmed or giddy. So I think, personally, I think this is something people should study in high school. Like, it should be taught to you. When you fall in love, these are what hormones and neurotransmitters are going to do to you. Because what most people do is when they have this strong euphoric feeling and that hyper focus, the capacity, you notice everything they say, everything they do, what they do with their fingers, what their preferences are, memorize it all. And what a lot of people do is that they make an interpretation, which is deluded. Because I feel so strongly about this person, they must be the one. And the reduced rational part of the brain. Well, I know they're 30 years older, or I know they have another partner, or I know they have a different religion, or whatever other evidence there might be that would suggest, hey, it might not work. When the frontal cortex isn't working so well, the feeling can be, we love each other so much, somehow we'll make it work. And that's the beginning of a long and sad story for many people. I once asked an Indian man, a Muslim man, what he thought about love marriages, because in in India, less so now, but a lot of people still have in Islam, in the Muslim community, they have arranged marriages. And this Muslim man says, I said, what do you think about love marriages? And he says, I hate love marriages. Well, that's pretty strong. Well, it's a pretty strong statement. Why do you hate love marriages? And he says, love marriages are selfish and they very rarely work. When thinking about getting married, you should consider, that's what he's saying, not me. He said, you should consider, will the families get along? Will the socioeconomic situation get better? Do you have similar worldviews? And I think if you look at the rates of divorce in countries where people base falling on love and being attracted as the main criteria, there's a lot of separation a few years later. But in organized marriages, I think particularly when you meet, you might have a short list and you might get to meet a few of them and maybe you get to make a choice from them. I think that might be, in terms of a long-term strategy, there might be some wisdom to that. So is it temporary insanity? Yes, it is. But I'm not saying it never works, and I'm not saying you can't make it work. So if you're fortunate, your brain did that to you when you met a good person, and you're able to have a couple of nice experiences in the honeymoon phase. And what's interesting is once people get married and they're actually together, the brain doesn't do that anymore. So it actually, but if it's a good companion, it will start releasing different types of hormones, different types of neurotransmitters associated with friendship, companionship, and certain hormones that are give conducive to good health when you have a good friend, someone you can talk to, some empathy, that kind of thing. So it's good if people base their relationships when you meet somebody and you're feeling euphoric, you really do need to ask yourself, can I be a good friend with this person? Would this person be someone I want to be with in 10 years, 20 years? That's the kind of question. But that's a prefrontal cortex kind of a thinking, right? But we have to say that to ourselves before we fall in love. Aside from the hormones, in our hearts as unenlightened beings, there are the seeds, right? There is that which we like. So there'll be a certain look that we probably like in the gender that we find attractive. There will be sounds that we like, type of voice that a person might have. There will be the views that we like and the views that we don't like. There will be the tastes that we have on all sorts of things. And if a person ticks all of those boxes, they'll say, I like how they look. I like how they sound. I like the same food they like. We have similar political views. We have a similar background. We have similar dreams. So you tick those boxes. And personally, I have experienced falling in love as being quite a painful experience. And it's interesting because most people, it's like they want to experience at least once in life, really want to fall in love. They want the romanticization of it, the belief that falling in love is a large component of what makes a person happy, despite a lot of evidence that it might not. It's almost like the one analogy I have is a bit like the ingredients of concrete. I'm a forest monk in Thailand, so I know all about concrete, but you might not. So the ingredients of concrete are fine sand, nice little stones, this beautiful fluffy powder, right? But if you pour water in it and mix it up, that thing becomes really, really hard, really, really sticky and heavy, difficult to move. But so in my experience, you like a person's character, the mind can get a little bit infatuated with liking the person. Then on top of it, that person is your type, whatever your tastes are. You like how they look as well. You like how they sound as well. Okay, it's another ingredient. And then if you have sexual attraction jump in there as well, that's when you pour the water on. That's when it's becoming concrete. That's when things get heavy and sticky. And it can be a difficult phenomenon to extricate oneself from. What's interesting is I'm having quite a bit of fun talking about that. I don't know if you're as interested as I am. Is this interesting subject to you? Some of you will be thinking, why did I fall in love with that person? Why did I believe why did I let my hormones do that to me? Anyway, I'm not recommending divorces or anything. I'm recommending that you find a way to make it work and that you meditate together. That's what I'm recommending. So what was I saying? Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting how Lord Buddha, when the monks and the nuns entered the 3-month retreat, there was some, we're not allowed to go away for more than 6 nights. We have to be back before a 7th dawn. Lord Buddha clearly wanted the monks and nuns to be focused on their practice in a more concentrated way during that period of time. But he gave some exceptions. And one of the exceptions he gave, where he said, it's okay for you to run away from that place and go somewhere else, is the phrase he used was, if there is a threat to the brahmacharya. So he didn't say, you should never think this, you can't do this, don't be so stupid as to fall in love. He says, what he did say is, if this happens, you have my permission to get the hell out of there. Because one of the best ways to treat the phenomenon of falling in love is to lessen the contact and put more time and space and difference between you and the object that the mind has become obsessed with. So Lord Buddha had compassion, doesn't just come down with a lot of heavy judgment. He says, if you want to take care of your holy life, the brahmacharya, if you've fallen in love, you may leave. You may find a cave or a quiet forest or cross the border into another country, whatever it takes. If you do fall in love and you decide to follow it, then you have to make the best of it. try to be good friends. Do good monks and nuns fall in love? So I know a few who have, of course. I've been doing this for 30 years. And it's interesting that the ones that I know of, all of the ones that I know of personally, are not with the person now who they fell in love with and left the holy life for. Isn't that interesting? That in itself also suggests something, that the prefrontal cortex wasn't functioning so perfectly. And when the reality set in, it's like, oh God, he snores. Oh God, she farts. Or worse, they both snore, they both fart. And you can't have the same projection anymore. They're not as beautiful as I thought they were. They're not a deva. They're a smelly human being. And yeah. Anyway, enough said of this entertaining subject. All the best in samsara, guys. I wish you well.
Question 5, dear Ajahn. What does forgiving actually mean? What is abandoned by forgiving? If someone repeatedly hurts us, does forgiveness ever become the wrong answer? Thank you.
What does forgiveness mean? What is abandoned when one forgives? If someone repeatedly hurts us, is forgiveness the wrong answer? So I think it's helpful and important to separate the issues of forgiveness and trust. So in English, we often have this saying, forgive and forget. In Buddhism, I think we would say forgive and don't forget. So you owe it to yourself, if you have healthy self-care, to be mindful if a person's actions are skillful or harmful. When we get hurt and we add to that feeling of hurt anger, we hang on to that feeling of anger and it becomes a grudge. It can become a heavy, fixed, negative perception. So that's something that we carry around that's hurting ourselves. It's painful. So one of the reasons we offer forgiveness is to remove that from one's heart. So as a healthy act of self-care, we forgive others so that we don't feed our anger, so that we don't hold on to grudges, so that when our time to leave this life comes, there's no unfinished business. You forgave them. So we do that for ourselves, but we also do it, Lord Buddha says, it's a higher form of generosity, actually. It's called apayatan, the giving of fearlessness. So if someone has hurt you, but you are not going to actively take revenge, then that person doesn't have to live anxious, paranoid. So we give that to beings. But if in lifetimes can be complicated and there can be all sorts of different situations. So if a person has a habit of being harmful and you're in danger, then you do need to think about healthy boundaries. And sometimes you might need to call the police, call the social worker to go and get a restraining order. There's things that we can do if somebody endangers us. And then you have the laws of the land that protect people, hopefully. But so forgiveness, I think, is always good. And we do that because we don't want to make karma with anger, with hatred, with grudge holding, with desire for revenge, qualities that darken the mind. But wise discernment also knows where to set a boundary and whether or not a relationship is worth pursuing. If we can avoid a person who we come in contact with that person and we repeatedly feel that we are treated unskillfully or get hurt, if you don't have to come in contact with that person, if you can avoid them, that's okay. It's like healthy boundaries. I wish you all the best in all of your relationships. Speaking about hormones, I'm going to do a quick search, another search. I bet there's a whole bunch of hormones that get released in meditation. I'm going to do a quick search. And since we're having the hormone and neurotransmitter discussion, let's see. hormones released in meditation. Meditation can influence the release or reduction of several hormones. Meditation can increase the levels of serotonin. So I think serotonin is like literally one of the ingredients of Prozac, something that people take for mental health. It's also in chocolate, which is part of why we like it so much. But you don't have to eat the chocolate. You can go and meditate. It has dopamine. Dopamine gets released. Melatonin gets released. And the levels of cortisol, a hormone that is released when we're experiencing stress and suffering, is lessened. So we need to train our bodies and minds while we have this human situation to get, if you're going to get attached to any pleasure, it's good to attach to peacefulness first, and then you can deal with your attachment to peacefulness later. But if it's get attached to being a little bit peaceful and get attached to feelings of well-being and learn how to support, encourage, maintain that well-being. And then when you have insights from the foundation of being a lovely being that experiences well-being, when you have insights into not self, you can let go of your attachment to such things. So I hope something I shared may have been useful to you. I wish you well in your practice.
Sadhu, thank you so much for a lot of sharing, guidance, and teaching, Prajan.
You're welcome. My pleasure. I had fun tonight. So, and if any of you fell in love and you're still in love, I rejoice. I'm happy for you. May you all fall in love with the Buddha Dhamma. May you all fall in love with your potential to be liberated. Anyway, with all my love. Goodbye.